Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending on where you're joining from. My name is Oishi, and I will be your moderator for the webinar today. And I work with the Global Impact Investing Network's Iris Plus and Impact Measurement and Management team. And today we are kicking off two Iris Plus themes, one in its beta version, which is available for public comment, and the other in its final version available for use in Iris Plus. As people start joining in, I'll start with some housekeeping and going over the agenda. Please bear with us for any technical issues. We are still figuring out Zoom webinar, and it is an interesting experience, and there are several enhancements that have been made for a better viewing experience for all the participants. As you can see, you have the chat option through which you will be able to ask questions. Please keep yourselves on mute unless you're speaking. And you will be able to interact with the panelists as well through the chat function. Please note that this presentation, along with the decks that you will be viewing today, will be shared after this webinar. So we will start with brief introductions and some frequently asked questions to kick you off right on what we hear most about, the questions we hear most about Iris Plus. We will share a brief update on the active Iris Plus themes, followed by deep dive on introductions and the theme development process. And of course, we'll talk about what's launching today, and we'll hear from our incredible working group members, our panelists who are joining today. We have Laura Lahti, Head of Impact from Camco, who's joining us as part of the Climate Adaptation and Resilience Working Group. Also from the same working group, we have Ravi, Janjwadia, Portfolio Officer from Green Climate Fund. We have from our Marine Resources Conservation and Management team, joining Jada, Tullos Anderson, who's the Program Manager at Wildlife Conservation Society. And we'll have Natalie Gartmann, also from the Marine Resources Conservation and Management Working Group, who's an ESG and Impact Manager at Pegasus. So we'll hear from our panelists before I get to them. You'll hear a little bit from me. So to jump right in, with some frequently asked questions that we get on Iris Plus. So the first one is the Iris Plus themes are all interconnected, and they're developed through a continuous collaborative process. And beyond what you will be seeing in today's launch webinar, and as part of both the themes, additional relevant content is actually available in Iris Plus. So feel free to explore that, and that content is made available so investors and users are able to explore this content based on different impact pathways that they want to measure for. This also is a co-creational process. We co-create with our end users as well as expert working group members. And we have the working groups not are limited to the GIN membership. We have working group members from all over the world, beyond the impact investing community, and it helps us keep a global footprint and include voices from different communities and different intersectional experts for Iris Plus metrics. So we have, for the two themes launching, we have consulted 100 to 200 experts in different capacities, with working group members more intensely engaged, about 30 to 50 experts per theme. And currently, we have the beta version available for one theme, as you know. So all the Iris Plus content that you see in the final website, the beta version first opens for a 60-day public review before they are made available for use in Iris Plus. And for both the themes that are launching today, we have some interactive live deep dive workshops coming up, and you'll receive the information through email after this webinar as well. So kicking us off with some active themes we have for IRIS Plus. We have currently 3 themes, IRIS Plus Climate Adaptation and Resilience, which kicked off in December 2024. And the beta version, many of you have attended the webinar there in December 2023. The work is supported by Omidare Network India, and we're incredibly thankful for our partners, Windrock International, who helped us develop the beta version. We have Marine Resources Conservation and Management theme, which is launching today for the beta version and available for public comment period. The work was supported by Walton Family Foundation, and we have the theme as our expert theme partner. We have PFC Social Impact Advisors, led by Gayle Peterson, as well as Michaela Capps, who unfortunately could not join today because of a sudden injury. So big shout out to Gayle for her work for the marine theme. And we also have in our pipeline IRIS Plus Waste Management theme, which is scheduled to launch for beta version in September. And for that theme, we are supported by Aspen Network for Development Entrepreneurs, and we have Circle Economy as our theme partner. So if you're interested in joining our waste management working group or consultation group and would like to be part of the process for creating this theme, please reach out to me, and you'll also find information in the email. So what's launching today again, the climate adaptation theme, as well as the marine theme in beta version, which is available for public comment until April 22nd, 2025. So also, as part of these 2 themes, we are introducing 8 strategic goals. For the climate adaptation and resilience, we are focusing on improving adaptive capacity of communities. We are focusing on resilience to flood risk, power systems, as well as agriculture through technology. We are focusing for marine resources conservation theme on 4 strategic goals that are similarly improved climate adaptive capacity for coastal communities, improvement of marine conservation by reducing pollution, improvement of marine conservation by protecting and restoring marine ecosystems, increasing adoption of just practices in marine resources management. So these are the skeleton of the strategic goals, which are investable impact goals, typically targeted by investors and other IRIS Plus users who tend to access these metrics as part of these goals. And I'll get much further into details. But as part of these 8 goals, we are launching 50 plus new metrics and indicators, as well as associated definitions, evidence, resources, overviews, usage, and calculation guidance. So for both those of you using this content for the climate theme or providing feedback for the marine theme, it would be really great to have you review parts of this content as you review the indicators and metrics as well. So you can refer to all the associated guidance that's made available. So we'll get to know more about the metrics and in detail about this content in the deep dive workshop that are coming up. So what's new in these 2 themes? And we're very, very excited about this new structural shift that we've made for these 2 themes. One is a critical one, which was highly encouraged by both the working groups, which is having a communities first or beneficiary first approach. So for the first time in IRIS Plus, we have strategic goals and outcome indicators that focus on communities directly. And we have given this work several rounds of revisions because of how critical evidence is for investments with communities first approach. However, how terribly lacking it can be in many ways. So we've tried to come up with as many use cases as possible from our investors to understand how to scout for the gap in evidence. We are also focusing on technology adoption as part of a strategic goal that's launching, which is the first for IRIS. We did have metrics, but in terms of a strategic goal that is explicitly targeting to create impact through technology, this is a first. So we are introducing some stakeholder accountability through some community grievance metrics, which as part of the marine theme, which was also considered of critical importance by the working group, who really thought this accountability and participation and representation of community members that investors engage with as part of the decision-making and investment mechanism process. So we also have multiple outcome indicators available now for the same strategic goal, which is a first, and this is for the marine theme as well. And this would support wider theories of change for Iris Plus users who have different impact pathways that they're specifically interested in. And we were able to test some use cases through interactive workshops where we invited investors as well as their investees to come together in a room and dig deeper into their theories of change and their impact model to understand how data moves, how information moves from their respective impact models to understand what gaps exist and what could potentially solve them. So both scouting for best practices and gaps, these workshops were very exciting and highly cherished by our working group members who volunteered to be part of it. And with all of these exciting updates, I think the question is, what can you do? Of course, you can explore the new content, both the draft and the final ones. You can attend live workshops, and there you can find more details about this content, as well as ask questions, provide feedback, and learn how these metrics could fit into your impact measurement and management framework. You can, of course, provide feedback online as well as offline. And you can also be part of ongoing Iris Plus themes. And again, let us know if you're interested in being engaged for future Iris Plus themes as well. So without further ado, I'll jump right into introductions of the GIN. For those of you who are new to the GIN universe, welcome. And we are an ecosystem building organization. We work to push the boundaries of impact investing to increase its scale and effectiveness around the world. And we achieve this vision by building a community of practice. We are a network membership of over 400 investors across 50 countries globally. We achieve this vision by providing tools, guidance, and resources that are made available for stakeholders beyond the membership. And also the GIN regularly publishes actionable insights and research, as well as if you have participated previously or you're participating currently for our Impact Investor Survey, which is a great platform for investors to learn about the ecosystem and the latest trends and insights. And you can, of course, learn more from our website. For those of you who are new to Iris Plus, Iris Plus is part of the GIN's legacy for over 15 years. And Iris Plus is a set of tools and guidance. Iris Plus is framework agnostic. And the goal for Iris Plus is to translate impact intentions into measurable results. All the content in Iris Plus is available as public good for anybody to use. And Iris Plus can be used throughout the investment process, including in due diligence, and it helps investors to make data-driven decisions, as well as managing their impact performance with additional rigor. Iris Plus currently is used by 40,000 registered users, which is a huge achievement for all the coworkers and teams that have worked throughout these past years, even before when Iris Plus was Iris, and it evolved into Iris Plus, expanding from a catalog of metrics to additional tools and frameworks. The catalog of metrics we have for Iris, it includes over 750 metrics, and we have frameworks. Through Framework Builder, you can actually go to the Iris website and you can build customized templates for your theory of change or any impact pathway you're interested in to look for metrics and indicators that are relevant for you. We have a thematic taxonomy that helps you compare impact themes. We have additional guidance and knowledge hub that is made available for investors, which is curated and is considered to be super useful by our users because Iris Plus has more outcomes that are evidence-backed, more than what you can find the metrics for. So investors can also see what other important impact areas that are important, as well as have strong evidence for. And of course, including all of this, we have our set of core indicators and metrics, which help investors measure, again, more outcomes and indicators beyond what is available in Iris. And of course, we have the benchmarks, and you will have more update about our upcoming benchmarks after our webinar today through the email as well. Iris Plus actually is aligned with 78 SDG targets currently, and 83% of our metrics, like total 750 plus metrics, are aligned with SDGs as well. And this alignment is critical to our work because the goal is for Iris Plus to reduce creation of new metrics and to function as an aggregator to provide translatable input for investors to understand and use multiple frameworks collectively. Iris Plus, again, is developed with over 1,800 stakeholders throughout different themes that have developed since its launch. And you can see some investors, networks, as well as data providers here. But this does not represent all the 1,800 organizations and individuals, of course. Iris Plus, again, also is sourced from over 50 standards and framework. And oftentimes, a lot of people confuse Iris Plus to be a framework, but Iris Plus is not a framework. Iris Plus is an aggregator. Iris Plus is highly framework agnostic. And as we build each theme, the goal is to continue to source and adapt to existing standards and frameworks as we go. So to understand the basic structure of Iris, so we have in each different impact theme or impact categories, they're all interrelated, as you can tell. And so the same strategic goal that you would see available for the climate adaptation or the marine conservation theme will be applicable for impact themes beyond climate and marine. So they can be applicable to other SDGs as well, based on the causal relationship. And this is why once the content is uploaded, this is the relationship that is taken into consideration at the back end for us to have content available and aligned with multiple SDGs. So all of these SDGs are tracked to Iris metric, which helps investors to understand how they are aligning with different SDG targets. So the theme development process, I'll do a very quick run through. It is typically an 18 to 24 month process, which starts with first finding the strategic goals, which are the investable impact goals, then eventually shaping up with outcomes, outcome indicator to metrics. This is a double diamond process. It's a zoomed out version of the theme development process. So we cast a wide net in the beginning of the process that's led by the GIN to understand what is possible. And then we match it with available evidence and investor practice led by an expert theme partner to understand what is feasible. And then we further, within what is feasible, we further cast a wide net and ask, what else is important? What else is overlooked? And what else can we scout additional frameworks and investor use cases for? So we, within those feasible investment ready impact goals, investable impact goals, we cast again a wider net to understand the wider scope. And then eventually we take the evidence, we take the investor use cases, we consider the causal linkages, and design the Iris Plus style metrics. And again, the end of the process is led by the GIN, where the theme partner exits. And the birth of the Lego style metrics happen. So the Lego style metrics, again, is the style of iris metrics, which functions as a building block for multiple indicators, multiple outcome indicators, as well as outcomes for a number of different strategic goals, impact categories, as well as SDGs. And that's the process that happens between when the theme partner exits the process and after the GIN takes over again. So when you are looking at this content, for those of you who will be providing the public, providing feedback for the public comment period, please look at the measurability, the feasibility, and scalability of our core metric set. You also, of course, are welcome to provide comments on the new metrics and glossary terms. So that's all from me, and thank you for your patience for hearing me for this long. We will kick us off with the working group perspective. So first of all, I'm really thankful for the time and commitment for these 4 individuals that you're going to hear from. We'll start with insights from asset owner perspective. And I'll start with you, Ravi. And as I load your slides, I would welcome you to introduce yourself. So just for background, IRIS Plus metrics for the climate adaptation theme has been sourced intensely from the Green Climate Fund's Integrated Results Framework. And we'll hear from Ravi about how the 2 frameworks overlap and as part of his experience from the working group. Over to you, Ravi.
Yeah, thank you, Oishi, and greetings from Seoul, South Korea. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Ravi Janjwadia. I'm a portfolio officer working at the Green Climate Fund. My work focuses on impact measurement for the audience here today and monitoring and evaluation, as the broader space has been called, in terms of measuring impact. Without further ado, I can go through a few slides which I prepared, and happy to share my perspectives as a working group member in developing the IRIS Plus matrix for climate adaptation and resilience. Yeah, thank you, Ishi. All right, so how do we measure adaptation impact at Green Climate Fund? This first few slides will just give you an introduction about GCF, if that's a new organization for you. It has been set up by the United Nations Framework for Climate Change Convention, conceived in 2010, starting with its first set of investments in 2015. So it's a new multilateral climate fund with serving the Paris Agreement as being the most important financial mechanism to implement its goal. It's supporting developing countries to transition to low emission and climate resilient societies. So there are 2 important themes for GCF. One is climate mitigation, and the second one, climate adaptation. Over 130 countries in which GCF has made investments, with 300 projects and programs now, nearly reaching through over 100 partners. It's serving as a hub of the climate finance landscape. What do we mean by that? It's able to provide funding through various financial products, grants, loans, while also doing equity investment in funds nationally, regionally, and also globally. While the more important thing is the genesis of GCF was to being an learning hub of how to measure impact, monitor impact, climate adaptation being a new space. GCF's role has been very critical in it, and designing policies and frameworks. The next slide will show some of the portfolio figures, that how big kind of GCF is. So the total commitment GCF has made, and these figures may revise upwards this week because our board has been approving another set of projects just yesterday. So 16.5 billion of commitment by GCF, with breakup in public and private sector both. 10.5 billion in public sector, while the remaining over 6 billion in private sector. So it makes GCF one of the biggest climate finance investor in the private sector. The total portfolio, if we include the co-financing in terms of bringing the investment from other investors, reaches around more than 60 billion. This shows the catalytic nature of GCS financing. It acts as an impact investor in most of the spaces in private sector, where it becomes an anchor investor in a fund or in a program, and bringing more catalytic investment from national but also international investors. So the next slide will show the key investment areas in which GCF invest, and I think these are more similar to the strategic goals for Iris Plus, and I think this is where the how GCF framework has been useful in creating Iris Plus, and the learnings from there can be seen in a better way. So the four themes which are for adaptation are in the bottom row, and which is useful for today's discussion. The first one being on livelihoods, second on health, food, and water security, third on climate infrastructure resilience, and the fourth on ecosystem and ecosystem services. So now these four strategic goals or four investment areas translate into a results framework. That how do we measure results against these four investment areas for adaptation? So this picture gives a full overview of the integrated results management framework, IRMF, which Oishi mentioned earlier. This is a policy approved by the GCF board and applies to all the investments of GCF. I think the most important features of this, which I wanted to highlight today, is the middle chunk, which is talking about the GCF outcome level change. Here we have indicators which are quantitative, which measuring mitigation adaptation, and then there are qualitative indicators measuring enabling environment. So firstly, if we look at quantitative indicator, the first one is GHG emission reduction, which is the greenhouse gas emission reduction, focusing more on mitigation. The second one, the most important, direct and indirect beneficiaries reach. Through a very long negotiation and also research and stakeholder consultation within GCF and its ecosystem, this is the most important indicator which Green Climate Fund has arrived at, is measuring climate adaptation impact through number of beneficiaries in terms of direct and indirect benefits. The second one is physical assets made more resilient, giving monetary impact of the adaptation, and then the natural resources are measured through hectares of natural resource areas brought under improved climate resilient management. The next slide gives a quick case study on an investment recently made by GCF in Acumen Resilient Agricultural Fund 2, ARF 2. ARF 1 was also also under which GCF made investment, and now ARF 2 is the recent one where GCF put $30 million in equity, and being an anchor investor, bringing 90 million US dollars, bringing the total fund size to 120 million. Here it is, as I said before, scaling of the success of RF1, mostly focusing on the climate resilient of smallholder farmers. So the focus is very clear, which helps into design the strategic goal, and the impact now put down through beneficiaries, as I mentioned before, direct and indirect. This is investment will be made in 8 countries. I'm sorry, six countries in Africa, focusing solely on climate adaptation. The next slide gives an overview on the theory of change, which is really important for GCF to understand the adaptation impact pathway. And here I wanted to show that how important for GCF is to understand the outcomes and then the paradigm shift impact of the project. While output are the orange row is where the activities are being implemented, results been created, but the outcome is where the actual adaptation impact is created. And for this particular investment, ARF is focusing on small scale agriculture businesses and farmers. The natural focus, strategic goal, and investment area happens to be livelihoods and food security. This translates into its own indicators, and here the impact measurement really comes into action. So the next slide shows few indicators from GCF. which RF is also using, and also more importantly, adapted into the IRIS Plus matrix for this theme, where we're measuring beneficiaries to different themes. First is measuring adoption of innovation, very important in terms of outcome level, rather than just looking at how many people have been reached. Now we are looking at how many beneficiaries have adopted in particular innovation, how many beneficiaries are covered through new and improved early warning system. Again, adoption of climate resilient livelihood option. Here we're talking about how to measure green jobs and the benefits through it. And the next slide shows more broader indicators, which also been leveraged in IRIS Plus matrix. Here is beneficiaries with improved food security, beneficiaries with climate resilient water security, and then beneficiary living in buildings that is made climate resilient against climate hazards. So these are different matrix and themes which are more cross-cutting, but all focused on beneficiaries from the climate adaptation perspective. So I think I'll stop here. This is, I believe, the next slide is my last slide, and looking forward to the discussion and sharing further insights. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ravi, and critical insights on the output and outcomes. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Laura to share about the highlights from and overlap with the IRIS metrics from Camco's work in Africa. Over to you, Laura.
Thank you, Oshi. Good evening, everyone from Johannesburg. I'm head of impact at Camco and look obviously after our impact strategy at Camco, as well as responsible investment practices and all issues related to impact monitoring, measurement, and reporting. Now, Oshi, once we get the slides on, I think I would like to give a brief introduction to Camco for those who don't know. I will be talking to you about the resilient energy systems today. I think, Oshi, we are still waiting for the slide, but let me start with the introduction. So Camco is a climate and impact fund manager headquartered in the UK. We can go to the next slide already. Thank you. Headquartered in UK, we have a long sort of history in energy investing, renewable energy investing, and climate finance, been operating in the African continent for over 30 years. The past nearly 10 years, we've been focusing on asset management solely. And with that, we can move to next slide. So our niche is providing innovative financing solutions to renewable energy, small and medium-sized renewable energy projects and companies. So both we're doing IPPs, off-grid solution, battery solutions, as well as providing small and medium-sized enterprises in the continent with sustainable power solutions. Those who know the continent and the countries, access to energy and availability of stable, sustainable power is a big issue. Now, our focus has been largely in Africa. Currently, we are extending to our TIDES facility to the Pacific region, but my focus today is on the REP2 fund. We can move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So I see the formatting has gone a bit funny. Apologies about that. So REP2 is a 250 million blended finance facility. GCF is one of our investors, an equity investor with a 50 million ticket into this fund. And here, if we are looking really from the impact perspective, our key objective is to provide access to clean energy for all in the continent, as well as mitigate CO2 emissions. However, REP2 is also a cross-cutting fund, so to say. So in addition to mitigating emissions, we do provide funding that improves the resilience of energy infrastructure, as well as improves resilience of beneficiaries and communities. Okay, let's move to next slide then. At at fund level, very quickly, you can see the theory of change on the right-hand side, following GCF's guidance. So a couple key highlights here is with this 250 million fund, we intend to invest into 330 megawatts of renewable energy, connect about 5 million people to clean energy and improve resilience, avoid about 13 million tons of CO2 over the lifetime. Next slide, please. Now here, I'm spending a little bit more time. So in the adaptation rationale of REP2, so in terms of energy infrastructure, focusing on that today, not on the community. So at fund level, we see the two key elements. This is a so to say, justification we built for our GCF funding. So a lot of the countries are heavily reliant on hydropower, which will be impacted by climate change, increased droughts, increased change in seasonal weather patterns, and therefore hybridizing these countries in which the national electricity is heavily reliant on hydropower with solar and wind, we can increase the resilience of the energy infrastructure. Then in terms of transmission and distribution, providing the infrastructure is also affected by increased extreme weather events and therefore disruptions, and providing funding to mini grids and isolated grids that decentralize the transmission and distribution system can increase the resilience. Now, finally, I want to look at a project-specific or investment-specific example, so we can move to the next slide, please. So this is a case study in Tanzania, a small-scale renewable energy plant. It's the first private large-scale rural network in Tanzania, which had a 4 megawatt hydropower plant. Initially, we provided them 1.2 million mezzanine loan for a 2.4 megawatt wind farm, which then provides access to provide some power to national utility, but also provides power to over 6,300 customers in over 40 villages, some local factories, etc., and schools. On the right-hand side, you can see our kind of our adaptation appraisal. So we built this Camco adaptation decision and project tool, which adapt tool which we use in our investment appraisals. Here you can only see the first two steps through which we, so to say, specify whether this is a cross-cutting investment or not. So the first one is to identify the location-specific climate hazard. In this case was increased temperature and evaporation, leading to changes in annual rainfall and rainfall seasonality. And then the second question is then, okay, how does the specific response via funding reduce the vulnerability? So here, the reduction of available generation capacity to the hydropower is now hybridized with the wind that then provides improved or increased stability of electricity supply. Very rushed, trying to get everything in there, or most of it. That's it from my side. I will stop here and over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura, for these incredible insights. Now we're moving on to the Marine Resources Working Group, welcoming the asset manager perspective from Natalie Gartmann from Pegasus. Natalie, over to you.
Great, and thanks for having me. So my name is Natalie Gartmann. I'm the ESG and Impact Manager at Pegasus Capital. For those who don't know us, we are a global impact investing firm. We focus on climate change mitigation, adaptation, addressing biodiversity loss. So we invest into renewables, food systems, and pollution management, but we also have a dedicated blue economy strategy. So I'm going to focus a little bit on that. So if we go to the next slide. So unfortunately, I'm going to start with a negative note. So as you may be all aware, The key climate change indicators, including sea level rise, greenhouse concentrations, ocean heat, and ocean acidification, set new records. And humanity, we continue to emit greenhouse gases and also create pollution. And last year, 1/3 of the ocean experienced heat waves. And researchers have also confirmed that the coral reefs were bleaching for the 4th time within 25 years. And while most corals, or some corals, can recover from bleaching, we already lost about half of the global coral reefs. So they died since 1950. And also some researchers say that we may lose all of our corals until the end of the century. At the same time, coral reefs are an essential ecosystem. They support 25% of marine life. There are more than 1 billion people that depend on the ecosystem services that coral reefs provide, such as food security, coastal protection, and also livelihoods from tourism and fishing practices. And at the same time, the ocean is the most underfunded sector. So also SDG 14, the SDG for life below water, that's the most underfunded one. So if we go to the next slide, we are part of the Global Fund for Coral Reefs Coalition, which addresses the protection of the resilience of coral reefs and also the communities depend on them. We are multiple actors within the coalition, from like private sector entities, governments, philanthropies. And the two funding mechanisms of this coalition is a private equity fund that is managed by us, Pegasus. It's a blended finance fund. We are also backed by the Green Climate Fund, who is the junior or anchor investors. And the second financial mechanism within the coalition is the UN-managed grant fund, which provides technical assistance, capacity building, and policy-making support. All, of course, with the objective to support the resilience of coral reefs. So if we go to the next slide, so our investment strategy is focused on territorial waters. So that's the closest to the coast, basically. And it's where you find the most biodiversity in terms of mangroves, seagrass, marine life, and coral reefs. And also in terms of livelihoods, it's where you find the most jobs for communities that live in coastal areas. And our investment strategy essentially is to reduce the local stressors that currently threaten our coral reefs. Of course, climate change is one of the biggest driver of the loss of corals, but the local threats such as unsustainable fishing, illegal fishing, unsustainable tourism, coastal development, and pollution are the local threats. So we focus on basically addressing these stressors. So we invest into sustainable ocean production, which includes sustainable fishing, but also, for instance, seaweed. We focus on ecotourism that work with marine protected areas. And also we focus on circular economy and pollution management. And if we go to the next slide, the investment strategy goes hand in hand with our impact strategy. We have concrete objectives and targets that we translated. So, for instance, one of our key objectives that we look at is the number of hectares of seascape that we can improve, also including coral reef areas, then also the job creation and also the beneficiaries that we can reach. And then we also have key topics that we address that are more traditional ESG topics, such as, of course, health and safety issues and resource management. And then there are also sector-specific issues that we address depending on the sector. For instance, in sustainable fishing, we target specific areas and in KPIs. And all of the targets and KPIs, we embed them throughout the investment process. So we have a quite comprehensive screening process for opportunities to make sure that each opportunity or investment contributes to our objectives and that we don't run into the risk that we wouldn't be able to measure the impact at the end. if we go and like just the metrics and standards we apply, it's all aligned with best practice. And we're really grateful for the Marine Working Group because there hasn't been a harmonized framework and standards really for ocean investing, except for 1000 Ocean startup metrics that is already developed. So there's finally like some harmonization in the industry as well. Just to give you a few examples, and I want to be conscious of time, maybe I'll just leave it with this example. So one of the first investments we did is into a company called Carbon Wave. If you have been to the Caribbean or Mesoamerican Reef area, you may be familiar with the sargassum issue. So that's that brown algae that you see in the picture here. So if it's a low quantity, it wouldn't be harmful, but it's really the large quantities, it smothers the reefs. And once it arrives at the shore, it decomposes and it releases toxic substances, which go back to the ocean. So it harms marine life, and it's also a threat to the local communities. This company, Carbon Wave, they collect the sargassum at the beach and they process it into products that can also replace fossil fuels-based products. So, for instance, one of their key products is biostimulant, which supports the sustainable agriculture industry. They also have an emulsifier to support the bio-based cosmetics industries, and they also work on new products to, for instance, do vegan leather for the fashion industry, so seaweed based. And of course, the objective here is reduce the local polluters that harm the reefs and basically restore the ecosystem that supports the communities as well. It's really a threat also for the tourism industry there, but also for the fishermen. And as mentioned, in terms of biodiversity, it can also be harmful to marine life and coral reefs if the issue is not addressed. I do have more examples, but I think, Oishi, if I'm right, you reminded me of the time. It's better to move on.
Thank you. That'll be great. Thanks,
Yeah.
Natalie.
Okay, good. Thanks. So I hand over to the next speaker.
Thank you so much, Natalie, and also for your critical insights and contributions to the working group. Without further ado, over to you, Jada, about your incredible work directly with the communities for marine conservation. Oh, Jada, I don't think I can hear you.
How about now?
Yep, perfect.
Great. Hello and selamat malam from Sabang Island in Aceh, Indonesia, where I'm just next door to a marine protected area at one of our identified resilient reefs. I work for the Wildlife Conservation Society, and back in 2020, I reached out to the GIN working as a consultant on the design of a sustainable fisheries fund. And being involved with the working group has been so much fun, and it's really rewarding to see this draft being shared. So big thanks to Oishi and Gayle for their leadership. And before I share about the indicators we use, I want to tell you just a little bit about why we do what we do and how we do it. At WCS, even with the name that centers wildlife, we know that healthy ecosystems are crucial for human well-being, and that thriving communities play vital roles in caring for these places that they call home. Next slide, Alicia. And we do this by partnering with fishers, communities, and governments in over 30 countries, where we co-create fisher and community-led solutions to address the interlinked biodiversity, climate, and health crises. Our vision is of a more just, equitable, and durable future for coastal communities in which fisheries serve as engines of socioeconomic and environmental recovery. Within our programs, we're aligning our work with the human rights-based approach following the FAO small-scale fishery guidelines. We do this because it is not only the right thing to do, it's the only way we can realize our vision. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the climate and other crises we're facing on the next slide. So right now, go ahead. Yeah, great. All right, now we know that many small-scale fishers and coastal communities are caught in a vicious cycle where they face a number of ecological, social, and existential challenges. Years of economic and political marginalization have trapped many small-scale fisheries in cycles of overexploitation, where they can only provide a fraction of the wealth and the nutrition that they can generate when these fisheries are well managed. And the result is like what you see in the slide. It's ecological degradation combined with hunger, poverty, and cultural loss in coastal communities. And the most vulnerable residents, particularly women and children, are usually those that are hit the hardest by these issues. On the next slide, I'll show you our theory of change and what we're doing to reverse this. So some of the solutions, well, we believe in working with partners to equitably co-manage fisheries. And in this photo from the New Ireland province of Papua New Guinea, one of the most biodiverse, rich countries in the world, our teams consulted with over 9,000 people in 100 communities in a 7-year process with massive partnership with Indigenous peoples, national and local government authorities, plus local nonprofits to protect over 1.5 million hectares of marine habitat that's key for people's sources of income, food, and culture. And we'll go ahead and go to the next slide, Lucy. Oh, yeah, that one, sorry. Okay, sorry, we missed one, but that's all right. We'll just talk through it. So I wanted to tell you that some of our indicators are those ones that I just mentioned. It's the protected areas, it's percent of people that are working to manage the fishery and disaggregated by gender and age. In this example from the Ankaria NPA in Madagascar, our work with communities allowed us to realize that the marginalization of women in the communities meant that we're missing half the population participating in the management. And so through a series of interactions with communities and trainings with both men and women, we now have about 50% of the General Assembly that manages the area are women, and 20% of the board members. And recently the board is committed to having 50% of the board being women. And then we'll go to the next slide, the last one. And just wanted everybody to know that in summary, we believe it is possible to reverse these negative cycles that we see so often now in coastal communities. We track success not in terms of just the total protected area, but who's managing it, how, and what the social and ecological benefits are in terms of biodiversity, food, and incomes. Our vision is of a more just, equitable, and durable future for coastal communities in which fisheries serve as engines of socioeconomic and environmental recovery. With that, I'm done. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jada. And thank you for all our working group members who have been part of both of these themes. We will pause now for a question. We have the first question for Jada. Jada, can you explain how community impact can be measured without the existence of direct data collection or existence of available data?
Well, sorry, what was the first part again, Alicia?
How could data could be collected without the existence of available data or without direct data for communities?
For communities, I think that would be very challenging. If we're talking about understanding how they're participating in the management of their places, I don't know of a way that's possible. I know we can do that with different sorts of technology to manage biodiversity on reefs, to do that remotely, to do it with less people involved and less rigorous data collection. But in terms of making sure that people are actually involved in the meaningful management of their fishery, that takes understanding who's coming to the meetings, who's signing on to the attendance sheets with the government. It could be done working through government. You don't need NGOs like us necessarily, but you would need some people here.
If investors had to engage directly with communities, what are some best practices that are available? I think I will revert that to Jada and Natalie.
Sure. I'll go ahead and go since I'm off mute. So best practices, I would, it would be difficult for investors to work with them directly, but making sure that you're working with trusted partners within the communities, no matter who they are, making sure that they have a history with the community and that the communities are trusting them. And then also making sure that you're following some rigorous practices, like having a free, prior, and informed consent in place, having grievance redress mechanisms in place, so that if the local communities do have problems, that they have places that they can go to, and they feel that they can do that without threat and repercussions, negative repercussions to them. Natalie, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I echo that in terms of, as an investor, it's like working with the right partners, like the companies or projects, sponsors that we work with. We do assess whether they have a track record when it comes to community engagement, if they have done like proper stakeholder consultations with the affected communities, also what's their plan to further engage with the communities, and also having a grievance mechanism in place, as Jada mentioned. And in addition to that, we always also look to work with partners and NGOs on the ground that just also support our investees in actually doing that and bring some additional expertise in as well. So yeah, I would consider that kind of as best practice.
Thank you both. The next question is for Ravi. If we want to measure outcomes or changes, how can we measure the actual improved resilience of beneficiaries? For example, for farmers, increased resilience and adaptive capacity, how is it captured?
Yeah, thank you, Ishi, and thank you for the question. I think measuring resilience is a more a multidimensional concept. So we need to see in which sector the resilience has been created. So in the case of farmers, we are looking at agricultural resilience that could be measured through ensuring that their productivity is constant or increasing with the event of climate change hazards. Or in case of resilience of infrastructure or the where they are living and the livelihoods are located through lesser destruction of those infrastructure and access to infrastructure services. Now, in terms of actual measurement, I think that's where the question lies: is how do we measure that the beneficiaries have actually received that resilience? Here, GCF employs various different kind of techniques through regular monitoring of the investments. Of course, this measurement can be done. However, more importantly, GCF ask for evaluations of the investments and the projects here at the midterm stage and at the final stage of the project implementation. An independent evaluator can come in and look at more robust evidence collected through independently, maybe conducting an impact evaluation or a quasi-impact evaluation to understand if there is actual behavioral change being seen in the ground. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ravi. With that, I would like to thank all our GIN colleagues, our theme partners, our funding partners, and the incredible users of Iris Plus who make this work all worth it. I'd also like to give a big shout out to our speakers present today, to Ravi, Natalie, Jada, and Laura, as well as Gayle, unfortunately, who couldn't be here today. I also want to shout out my colleagues, Panayota, Kellen, and Gulshan Grace, who are working on the back end and you're not seeing them live. So with that, I would like to wrap up today's webinar and thank you all for joining. Thank you.